So hello everybody, welcome to this new VMC on AWS Architect Office Hours. So it's the 28th of July. We have, so I'm taking over from Will Wardward, who is in vacation at the moment. So we have online today my colleagues Prasanna and Fabio. Thanks for joining today. For the participants, you are muted, but you can unmute if you want, and whenever you have a question. And feel free to ask questions on the chat as well. We are also live on Twitch for people who are connected on Twitch. So on today's call, we will be covering several topics. First of all, as we usually do, we will review a little bit the release notes, quick review of it, and we talk about the two news we have. We don't have so much, but we have. We will also talk about some architecture design sharing options we want to have. Especially, I would like to talk about the transit VPC with the firewall IDS, IPS features, which is something more and more customers are asking. And also a little bit of information on how to access AWS services through the cross-CNI interfaces, especially when it comes to do some backups. Quite interesting to be able to leverage this cross-CNI interface to connect to S3 bucket, for instance. Some words about the load balancing on VMC with AWS Elastic Load Balancer, and Fabio will give us a few information because one of his customers are currently deploying such solutions. And to finish, we will finish with H6 migration and especially a focus on network extension, talking about how to set it up and something important to know about the network cutover as well. And PG, my colleague, will cover that aspect. So let's start with the release notes. So there are not so much new features for VMware Cloud on AWS at the moment. There have been two which are quite important. So one is the two-node SDDC. So two-node SDDC, two-node means two host cluster have been released in May, I guess. At that moment, it was in preview and then it came in production, but there were no SLA associated. But we have released the two-node SDDC with SLA, so it means that's now available with those SLA. So meaning that in any deployment of a two-host cluster, you will be able to be eligible for SLA. So very good options, very low cost one. It means that you can use that also in production, but for a less amount of money. When it comes to the compatibility and the region availability, what we can see on our VMware Cloud on AWS roadmap is that it's available on the North Virginia region, Oregon region, London for Europe and Frankfurt, and also Sydney for Asia and Pacific. So it's coming more and more, and we'll see that coming also. Another feature which is very interesting is the i3 EMEA instance type. So this is available for any new SDDC and cluster deployment. What we can say about that is that we have two dual Intel processors at the moment with 48 cores with hyper-threading, make it 96V CPUs available. So we were on i3 with 18 cores, and so now we have 14.8 cores available. So it's a much more number of cores and processors. For the i3N, we also have 768 gigabytes of RAM at the moment and 60 terabytes of raw NVMe storage. So it gives access to more power, very more powerful instances So for better cost value, you can have much more storage to leverage for the SDDCs. So it's very interesting option we have been released. So I will just leave Fabio talk about one of the projects he's currently on, which is where he's helping a customer
Chris,
migrate
sorry
from
to interrupt.
i3.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think the participants are not seeing an option to unmute. I believe this is something Will enables for the participants. Do you see any such option?
Yeah. I can see that. Sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can probably enable that for all the participants, and then we can move over to Fabio.
Okay, so
yeah, sure.
Yeah, can I go, Chris?
Yeah, you can go. I was
okay.
Just
okay, so just talking about a little bit
connect.
about the EN. So actually, several customers are looking to the new host type. So this will grant them to have more storage space, more compute resources. On top is how to move from i3 to i3N. So currently, it will be possible to create a new cluster with i3N on an SDDC that already exists, and will be able to create a new SDDC with i3N. So at this time, I'm working with a customer that is looking to migrate their current environment from i3 to i3N. So they will have a mixed environment with both of type of i3N, i3N on their own SDDC. But we need to move several workloads. So actually, the most easy scenario is just to create a new cluster with only the i3N. So this will mean that you will be able to a vMotion. So our old vMotion that will allow the customer to move the workload from the existing i3 cluster to the new i3EN cluster. That will mean that there will be no disruption of the service. All the data will be replicated from the first vSAN volume to the other one, and this will allow to do all the movement of the VMs without any kind of issues on the workload. And that is for workload that just have to be moved from i3N, from one cluster with i3 to i3EN. Now, if the customer would completely like to move the whole SDDC to i3EN, that will be a little bit more difficult because you will not, the customer are not allowed to move all the management VMs, so the center, the NSX edges, and whatever actually could not be moved by the customer. This have to be done by our engineering. So looking to this kind of scenarios that was evaluated by my customer, there was just some workaround. So the ideas and the actual supported plan is just to move all the workload from the cluster one, where all the management components are installed, into another cluster with i3N. Then our engineering will do some magic trick in the backend. So they will just add i3N host and move the management VMs to the i3N, and then the customer could maybe retain a small cluster on the first one, or move back the workload with the within the first cluster. So from the other one that was used just to evacuate the first cluster back to the first one. That is because we need to manage the SLA of the cluster one of the management components, and only on our side we could touch that management VMs. Could be just moving and evacuating a whole SDDC and moving everything to a new one. So maybe customer would like to do some changes and maybe create, move to a different availability zone, to a different region. They could just use HCX to do a cloud-to-cloud migration. So we'll establish a service mesh between the two SDDC, and then it will be allowed to move the VMs from the first SDDC to the new one with the i3N. So actually, these are the only supported scenarios that will allow the customer to move from the i3 to i3N. We also need to remember that before installing the i3EN, so before deploying the i3EN servers, we must ensure that the version is 1.10 before. So otherwise, it will not be possible to deploy the i3EN. So that is something mandatory. So we are working to upgrade all the SDDC, but if a customer needs to urgently deploy the i3EN, we can work on that. So that's our migration path, and the to have the 1.10 before, or just something more recent to allow the i3EN to be deployed. And if there is any question around that, or
yeah, if you have any question, feel free to ask them, whether by unmuting yourself or through the chat. No problem. We are there to answer any question.
Yeah, hi, this is Stu Gilbert. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. I've got some questions about GovCloud specifically. So are we open to talking about other subjects other than the new features you just went over?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Oh, I'm just saying, so I don't have a question about the new features that you just reviewed, so I don't want to, you know, change the subject unless it's a good time to do that.
don't worry, feel free to ask. We are here just, we got several topics, but we can also answer to other questions, so don't worry at all.
Okay. So we have an SDDC in AWS on GovCloud West 1C, and we are having some communication problems between the VMC and a VPC that we have set up there that should be communicating through a transit gateway, an AWS transit gateway. In commercial cloud, I have access to the login site in the cloud to help me troubleshoot connections and look at the firewall logs and see if there's drops. But in GovCloud, I don't seem to have that ability. What's going on there, and what kind of tools are available for me? You know, how can I troubleshoot a problem like this on the VMC side?
Okay, so
that's a tricky question.
yeah, I don't have so much experience.
That's why I'm here, for the tricky ones.
Yeah, I think the problem with this current batch is we don't have access to the GovCloud, so we don't have like full visibility into that part of the world. Unless Anthony, you have something to add, but maybe if it's just a connectivity issue between the SDDC and the linked VPC, maybe that's something we can discuss. Or if it's if you're connecting to that VPC over an IPsec VPN, then yes, that is also something we can discuss.
So there's, you know, I guess maybe if you can help me to make sure we're connected through that. But the VPN, I believe, is up. So not only do we have our ENI connection to a particular VPC, because that's how you guys set us up, but we're not using the ENI connection for this particular piece. We create a separate VPN to a transit gateway, which routes through there. So, and they're trying to do some communications from some VMs in a VPC in AWS. I mean, we are going to troubleshoot from that side as well, but I guess you guys aren't really, because you don't have access to GovCloud, maybe instead you need to, maybe the best thing is if you can refer me to someone who, you know, manages or runs and has understanding of that environment and what the plans are and how we should troubleshoot these kind of things on the VMC side in GovCloud.
Yes, I think that will be a good idea. If you can maybe ping me separately your email ID, maybe we can try to reach out.
I'll do that. Thanks.
Sure. But yeah, generally, the first step is to make sure the IPsec VPN tunnel itself is up between the SDDC and transit gateway. And the second step is whether the VPC is connected to that transit gateway. And the third step is to check the routing tables on the transit gateway. And the fourth step is to verify whether the route table within that VPC itself is updated for the SDDC subnets. So yeah, I guess these 4 steps is typically how we troubleshoot this specific connectivity. With respect to the additional tools such as LogInsight, I think we can reach out to you separately over your email.
All right, thank you. Yeah, those steps are fairly standard and obvious.
Yep.
So, yep, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your email. I got it.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. So the next topic we would like to talk about today is it's coming from one of the customers I'm currently working on. So I'm not going to disclose any name there, but I just wanted to share some network diagram we've been established for it. So it's quite a typical architecture we are seeing now. What you can see there is there are 2 SDDC, there are internet, there are on-prem data center, and there are some branch offices. And what the customer has requested us is a way to be able to in one way filter all of the traffic coming in and out from the SDDC to the internet, and to also from the branch office to the SDDC. So be able to have some kind of more intelligent devices, firewall with IDS, IPS features to be able to filter more deeply, let's say on layer 7, that kind of traffic. So it's true that at the moment, when it comes to VMware Cloud on AWS, we are using two kind of firewalls, one for the management gateway and one for the compute gateway. This is what you see on the diagram there. Those 2 firewalls are capable to provide a north-south network connectivity and filtering. So for the management gateway would be to protect the vCenter servers and NSX managers and any let's say management tooling that will be deployed on the management network. And the compute domain is protected by this compute gateway, which also provides the north-south traffic connectivity and filtering at layer 4 for virtual machines. So they both are firewall and they provide firewall capabilities, but there is something today which is a bit lacking, I would say. It's only layer 4 firewalling. So if you look for more layer 7 firewall capable of inspecting packets, payload, and URL as well, and dropping some traffic, for instance, internet-facing connectivity traffic, then you need probably something different. So we are working on having that kind of feature in the next version of VMware Cloud on AWS, but at the moment we have nothing available. So that's why we have to leverage other third-party solutions. And when it comes to creating an architecture, including that kind of filtering, there are several options on the table. So I would say one option is to route the traffic to the on-prem if the firewall feature is on-prem. But what if, for instance, the customer saying, I want to get rid of my data center on-prem, I don't want to keep it, I'm doing a data center exit. So yes, it's not going to work because we will not have any assets anymore on the on-prem. So another option is to install a virtual appliance, could be to install a virtual appliance in the compute segment and redirect all of the traffic coming from the compute virtual machines to this instance. So the problem of that is that we have to change the default gateway on each of the VM running on the compute segment. So it's a one after one configuration, a static configuration. It's not because it's not possible to change the compute gateway as a default gateway automatically. So it has to be made one by one. And the other pain points there is that it's gonna take a lot of time to change that. So it's complex. For some also support point of view, it's not really supported at the moment. So it's not also the kind of options we're gonna push. Third option is to use network insertion. So it's in the roadmap at the moment. So it means that we are gonna leverage the NSX-T feature to redirect some of the traffic to a third party, which is possible when it comes on premises to deploy NSX-T, but it's not yet supported on the VMware Cloud on AWS. So again, something we cannot leverage. And the last option is to leverage the transit VPC. So transit VPC is a construct which is coming from AWS. In that case, you will be able to install the firewall instances into the transit VPC and attach and interconnect your VMware Cloud on AWS to this firewall running in the transit VPC, and also through a VPN connection, and also be able to connect any other on-prem site or branch office with the VPN site-to-site, IPsec VPN. And this will allow for interconnectivity and traffic filtering into the transit VPC. So this is the most recommended way of doing that. It's true that sometimes you see that transit gateway is also a solution to interconnect, but when it comes to insert IDS or IPS features, additional security features, the only way to do that is to leverage the transit VPC. So in that case, you have what we call a hub and spoke architecture. So transit VPC is the hub, and all the VPCs or data centers or VMware Cloud on AWS would be considered spokes to this hub. What we can see also is that this kind of configuration has two possibilities, two capabilities. You can have only very simple configuration. For instance, we see on the disaster recovery sites there is only one firewall instance. So when it comes to deploy that kind of instance, more oftenly it's available through the AWS marketplace. So you can select any of the vendors available on AWS marketplace, and you can deploy whether one instances or two instances, whether you want to have high availability on the transit VPC. So if you have, let's say, only one instance, you will probably not have high availability. But if you want to enable high availability, you have to deploy two instances. So depending on the vendors, could be in the same public subnet, so in the same subnet, or it could be in two different subnets and one instance in each subnet, and one VPN attached connection will be established to the edge router, and there will be a second one also attached to the second instance. What we can say that in that kind of configuration is that it's really better to leverage route-based IPsec VPN for having access to this automatic route exchange. So on the NSX VPN point of view in VMC, there is only one public IP address. So there is one public address, but there is two separate devices in in the transit VPC, meaning that the way we achieve a resiliency in a VMC on AWS is through an active standby model. So we have two edges, only one is active and the other one is standby. This is the way we are implementing the resiliency. So transit VPC, we are seeing more and more. So that's why we wanted to highlight a little bit that kind of reference architecture. There is another things that we can see on the schema there. So I wanted to reinforce the fact that there are several VPC when it comes to deploy an SDDC. So you have a transit VPC when you need this firewall filtering. There is the VPC, which is the shadow VPC managed by VMware. So as a customer, you will not have access to this VPC. And there is the third VPC, which is the attached VPC, the native one that you will give us at the beginning of the project. And there is really three there on the schema, three different VPC. One important aspect I wanted also to highlight is the fact that in the attached VPC, you can leverage some of the AWS nice services. Like, for instance, if you want to back up some of the compute you have in your VMC, you can deploy, let's say, backup server. So it could be any solutions, any third-party solutions which is compatible. And you can leverage a S3 bucket, for instance, to store and to archive your backup for long-term protection. And you can also imagine leveraging a very interesting feature of AWS, which is the cross-region replication. And in this schema, we see that on top you have production environment, and the S3 bucket is used to back up all of the production environments. And there is a replication, so a cross-region replication to another region where the S3 buckets will keep some of the backups, and providing kind of a disaster recovery aspect and plan for in case you lose the production environment. So this is also probably something we will see more and more because of the Atrium solution we've been bought for not so much time. So disaster recovery is really something also customers are also looking for a lot. And so one other aspect of this transit VPC is that we can also use a load balancer. So if for any means you have to load balance, for instance, your web application server, so they can be totally load balanced by any AWS Elastic load balancer or standard load balancer. So in that case, you will have the option to use, so to connect from internet. You see on the schema some user connecting to the load balancer, which is on the attached VPC. So you can definitely use this attached VPC to run the load balancer. And the interconnectivity with the attached VPC and the VMware Cloud on AWS will be done through this Elastic network interface, allowing for high bandwidth interconnectivity, and you will be able in that case to load balance all of the VMs running on your private subnet SDDC totally transparently. This is one of the options we have. What we are going to be seeing in the future as well is the integration with the AVI solution. It's not yet supported, but it's on the roadmap as well. So it'll be possible to have some AVI components inside the VMware Cloud on AWS and be able to leverage that that provider to deliver load balancing and WAF also for the web presentation server. So one of the most interesting also aspect of this VMware Cloud on AWS is the fact that we can leverage a lot of nice features from AWS as well. Probably Fabio, if you have 5 minutes to talk about the current project also you are working on and where you also leverage AWS Elastic Load Balancer and VMC.
Yeah, actually I got a customer that for an instant messaging platform was requested to have some balanced public IP address to receive all and connection. So that was sadly not achievable on VMC right now. So they only supported the share that at the end we found it was leveraging the ELB from AWS. So worked with the vendor that have provided this messaging platform. So for AWS. So the idea was just to create, to request several public IPs on AWS. And then it was done netting on the private IPs of the VMs that are deployed on the SDDC. Everything was done on the attached VPC, so that has granted the ability to use the cross CNI to fully access with high bandwidth and low latency the system that are deployed on SDDC. That was something requested because with instant messaging, receiving video, or just doing video conference and whatever, it was requested to have really no latency because otherwise at the end the customer experience could become really bad. And so that was one of the prerequisites. And so I can say that was working quite straightforward without any kind of issues. So we got several issues only with some routing, that because the customer is using both direct connect and VPNs and some custom route table, and that has created some issues at the beginning, just to ensure that all the traffic was flowing on the VPC back to the Elastic Load Balancer and not on the direct connect, because at the end the customer was just establishing the connection from the public IPs but was answering on the direct connect, so was not working. That is something that we have really all times need to check, because like in your schema here, when you start to have multiple VPC, multiple connection, the routing could become really important, and that was also in that case. But I can see that leveraging the ELB, it's actually easy to achieve and easy to done. So just for sure using that on the attached VPC, so we can leverage the cross CNI, and for all the workload, also some heavy bandwidth workload, it worked properly. And that is something good because we can leverage all the AWS stack for this kind of functionalities that actually are not available on our platform. So yeah, that was something that we have achieved last year. And after 1 year that the customer is using that, we didn't have any kind of issues, anything. Also during the update was working properly. So we've done several failover just to do some tests, and everything was working properly. So I can say that, yeah, it works.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, something you may not see there is that we are leveraging so the internet gateway, which is not on the schema. This is from the traffic is coming from the internet gateway. It's landing on the load balancer, and then the load balancer is using the cross CNI to reach the real servers. So a very high bandwidth connectivity there. So yeah. So when we design high available infrastructure, so we are not only thinking about disaster recovery, we're also thinking about the mission critical application. It's very important that this local load balancing are always an essential component for the solution. Something also we are not seeing there, but it's important to mention, it's also the global load balancing feature, and it's also something which is usually provided whether using DNS or content delivery network. So it could be different different aspect there, and as well we can leverage again some AWS feature for that. Think about for instance global accelerator. Maybe it will be something we can talk about in the next session. Cool. Thank you very much, Fabio.
Hey, Chris, we got a comment from Jills. If you could maybe enable the unmute option.
Yes, sure. Oh, yeah. Anthony or no? Gilles, maybe.
Okay, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, Gil.
Yes.
Welcome. Okay. We got the expert.
No, not the expert. I just want to say I just want to say 2 points. Okay, first of all, you can connect security VPC with transit gateway, and there are advantages of doing that. That's 1 point. Second point, the transit VPC, you have some limitations with transit VPC, because when you connect a VPC to the transit VPC with VPN, there is only one tunnel active. Although the VGW always creates 2 tunnels, but only one is active, and there is no ECMP available. So you are stuck with 1.25 gig of bandwidth on the VPN, and you cannot really increase, because even if you have 2 tunnels, only one will be active. This is a very important point that you don't have if you connect VPN on a transit gateway. So in fact, on the transit gateway, you can connect as many tunnels as you want and use ECMP to a security VPC. And many customers are doing that. They have a VPC with an internet gateway, and that's the only connection outside. And inside that VPC, they use Palo Alto, Checkpoint, or whatever firewall. Okay, so this is really you know, a limitation in the design in terms of bandwidth, if you need bandwidth. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Good point. Good point. I think this was just because they are the example of the customer. They were not keen to leverage transit gateway because of cost reason. So that's why we were just mentioning this VPN connectivity and not through the transit VPC, but not transit gateway. But it's true that transit gateway offer much more options and bandwidth.
I agree with the cost. Transit gateway is not cheap. Okay, I agree with the cost. Yeah. Here you have a simple environment with just a few VPCs, but you know, if you go transit VPC with like 10 or 20 VPCs and you need to maintain all the VPNs all the time, it's a nightmare. Okay, it is.
Sure.
Okay, guys. Nice design, by the way. Also, I wanted to clarify one thing, that, you know, on the transit VPC, you have an internet gateway that is connected to the VMware Cloud. In fact, yeah, that's fine. I mean, okay. This is an internal connection. It's okay. It stays on the AWS network. It's okay.
It's a good point, because you may think it's a virtual, it's a VGW and not an internet gateway. But I guess no, because.
Okay, the advantage here is on the tier 0, when we do VPN, we use public IP. Okay, the VPN public IP. Now, this VPN public IP is coming from AWS, okay, because we are in AWS infrastructure.
Sure. Yeah.
And so if you have a VPN public IP from AWS and you go to a transit gateway, you go to a transit VPC, that will stay on the AWS network. Although it is an internet gateway, it stays on the AWS network.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
Good point. It's very important. Many customers are, they say, oh, my traffic is going to go through internet. Yeah. Although it is the internet connection, it doesn't go over internet.
That's very important to know, because it could make some confusion, because on the schema you see this internet gateway, but in fact it's not going over internet at all. So
that's correct. Absolutely correct. Very important point.
And also, what we can also reinforce is the fact that it's not possible to establish this IPsec VPN over the connected VPC as well, because I guess the default route will always go over the not go over the Elastic Network Interface, but go over internet. So
that's correct.
Never try to do that as well.
Yeah. Good job, guys. Very interesting.
Thank you. We try to do some things good, you know. By the way, so we have 20 minutes left, and would be interesting to continue this use case by switching to HCX, because obviously the use case for the customer there is to do a data center exit. So and one of the capabilities we are offering with VMC is HCX, which is a very powerful way of migrating virtual machines. And in that case, the customer is requesting to keep the IP address of the VMs, so does not really want to change the IP address. And even if there is not a lot of VMs to move, he wants to leverage as well bulk migration, because there are going to be some maybe hundreds of VMs to migrate. Obviously, layer 2 extension is something we can put in place very easily. And then bulk migration is offering there a low downtime and highly parallelized process to replicate the VM to the target site while they remain online on-prem. And then when the user wants, then it will be possible to switch over the VM to the target SDDC. So very easy way to, and very
will you go through the transit VPC with that?
No, we won't go through the transit VPC. We will go over the internet. So that's a good point.
I was wondering.
Always think about no. HCX is only working over internet or the direct connect. If you leverage direct connect, there we are not leveraging direct connect. So very good point as well. HCX on flow will go over internet in that example. What else?
Just one note about HCX and the connection, something that was facing last week with one of the customer. It was that the customer have enabled the traffic inspection on the firewall. So it was allowed to go on internet from the on-prem to reach the SDDC, but HCX was not able to establish the tunnel. That's because when there is something like that, so some sort of traffic inspection, HCX it's not so happy about that, and it will become near to impossible to establish the tunnel. So that is another just hint, because some customers forget to disable the traffic inspection just for HCX, and so they will not be able to just establish the tunnel. That was happened several times, and last week was again something like that. So that again is we are working on the direct connect, we are working on internet, but when enabling the firewall on-prem, just be aware that the traffic inspection for that traffic must be disabled.
Yeah, it's probably one of the recommendation and one of the requirements also to use HCX. It's not that there are a lot of ports to open, but it's true that if you enable this filtering, maybe it can do some troubles.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Let's do maybe a focus on the layer 2 extension, because this is a very interesting feature there. Quite easy to set up, but again, there are some requirements. It's not always possible to leverage this layer 2 extension because, for instance, you require to have a DVS to stretch the VLANs. So if you have a standard switch, it will not be possible to do the layer 2 extension. So, and it has sometimes it brings some problems sometimes, because one customer may not have a DVS available. if it's okay, so we can create the temporarily one in that case, and if one of the ES6 hosts have spare network cards, it's possible to create a new DVS, attach it to the spare network card and of the host, and then attach the current production networks to the DVS to be able to stretch those networks. So this is also something we are seeing sometimes. Obviously, not all the customers don't leverage DVS, so we have a lot of customers which are using that. So it's most of the case it's working. What we can say, the first thing we can note there is that the extended networks are not tied to the routing infrastructure of the SDDC. So it means that when you do a network extension to from on-prem, it's completely isolated from SDDC at the beginning. So this means that for the workloads, they will continue to utilize the on-prem router as their default gateway. In no case they will use the compute gateway available on SDDC when we start extending the network. So they continue to use the on-prem router as a next hop for reaching the DNS server, for instance. So everything's continued to go over this connectivity to the on-prem data center. So maybe I don't know, PG, if you want to take over, maybe, or do you want me to continue? Maybe to what kind of steps we should follow for H6 to extend the network, and talk a little bit about the process of migrating the workloads and do the cutover.
Yeah, sure. I can share my screen, or if you want, you can also proceed. I'm fine either ways.
Well, you can share your screen if you want.
Okay. Let me know if you can see the browser with the SDDC. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I guess the HCX is already enabled in this SDDC. So we do have sessions covering the actual deployment of HCX in our previous sessions. So if interested, you can watch the YouTube videos in the customer success channel. But I'll quickly jump on straight to the network extension piece. Let me quickly review the segments we already have in place. And as Chris mentioned, you can see that these networks are actually connected to the compute gateway, but you can find a couple of networks which are actually not connected and they are in disconnected state. So these are actually the HCX extended networks, and we'll quickly go through the workflow itself. So this extension has to be initiated from the on-prem side if we are doing the extension between on-prem and cloud, because this feature is also now available between cloud and between two SDDCs, and we call them as cloud to cloud. But yeah, so let me quickly jump onto the on-prem side or the enterprise side, and we can access the HCX plugin through two methods. You can either use the plugin within the vCenter or just access the portal directly from the HCX manager. Both are almost the same. So I will go to the network extension piece. Again, like there are a few deployment steps which has to be completed before we reach here. So feel free to watch the previous sessions. But in order to extend the network, just click on the extend network. And as Chris mentioned, we can extend distributed virtual switch port groups, or if you have NSX-based environment, you can register the NSX manager with HCX, and then you can see all the NSX networks or virtual segments. So I will maybe extend one of the NSX segments. And you can see that we can actually select the network extension appliance at the time of extension, and we can extend up to 8 networks per appliance. So you can also segregate the traffic. Let's say you have like 2 high volume subnets and you want to distribute the traffic. You can probably deploy a second network extension appliance and choose a second appliance here for this subnet. But in this case, I'll just go for the default extension appliance. And at the time of extension, we have to specify the default gateway and subnet prefix length.
Yeah,
and
basically what we can do with the network extension, we can stretch layer 2 network, could be VXLAN as well, or VLAN to the target site. And an interesting thing as well is that you can also use a trunk. So you can extend a trunk. So quite interesting if you want to make several VLANs, extended at the same in the same tunnel. What we can also say is that network extension appliance or layer 2 extension appliance are leveraging a one optimization technology, and it can schedule some network traffic, for instance.
Yeah, just a quick correction there. VANOpt is only applicable for the migration traffic. Like it is tied with the migration appliance or the interconnect appliance. And yeah, the network extension is just direct. So yeah, I think it's currently extending, and once we can actually use the refresh button here. And if you go back to the VMC portal, you can actually see a new network pop up here with that subnet we defined, and it will stay disconnected because we still need to retain the default gateway in the on-prem side until all the VMs are migrated. So the next step would be to migrate all the VMs in that specific subnet. And once the migration is complete, we will come back here, and maybe I'll just use this other one to show how the unstretch operation looks like.
Sure.
Now let's say we have migrated all the VMs over, and we are at a stage where we are ready to cut over this subnet from the on-prem to the cloud. So we just have to expand this small arrow here and click on connect cloud network to the cloud edge. So what this does is it basically changes this disconnected network into routed, meaning it is now connected to the SDDC NSX and becomes a routed network. And it basically cuts over the network from the on-prem to the cloud. And the network team has to clear out the network from the on-prem side so that there are no conflicts. So that's basically the unextend operation. But yeah, I think this one is still extending. But yeah, that's the basic flow of extending and unextending.
Yeah, thank you very much, PG. Are there any question about this process? No question. Okay. I guess we have covered all of the topics for today. So that was a very, very interesting case, by the way, which will help us cover all of the nice features of VMC. I hope you enjoyed the session. So next 2 weeks, there will be probably another session. Will be probably covered by Will as he comes back. If you have any other questions or concerns, you can reach out to us on Twitter or on any of the other channels that are available for you. Thank you very much, and see you next time. And thank you for the the colleagues here, Prasanna, Fabio, Gilles, for the nice, help for this session.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Keep it up.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice
Cheers.
evening. Bye. Cheers. Bye.
Take care. Bye.